Brazil is threatening to completely ban Elon Musk's X app, which was made out of the rotting, bloated corpse of Twitter. The country's Supreme Court gave the service 24 hours to name a legal representative in Brazil or face suspension. And a lot of this stems from an ongoing feud that Elon is having with one of their Supreme Court justices. And you can see that it's going very, very, very appropriate here. He's using Grok to generate images of said justice as if he were a Sith Lord and posting them. So I'm sure they find that really, really amusing. Basically, what's going on here is that Brazil has accused X of not following their local monetization and content laws, stopping hate speech, stopping misinformation. Elon says that censorship, he really didn't comply with anything that they asked him to do. So they posted a court order on X of all places, which is very, very amusing to me that the state of Brazil tags Elon Musk and posts their entire court order on here because that's the only way to get his attention. And he pretty much just ignores it. He doesn't appoint a representative, doesn't send a legal response. Basically, where they're playing chicken. He's just like, ban me. We'll see what happens. Just ban me. We'll see. And by all indications, if I get on Elon's Twitter right now, which we'll do, it's the afternoon, Brazil is now a dictatorship. Correct. What else do we have in here? We have a lot of kind of misinformation. More stuff about Brazil and talking trash about the judge, complaining about wokeness. I don't want to go through this too much, but about half of his messages are either anti-Brazil or anti this specific judge. And the legal strategy is to just not comply and force them to get banned in Brazil. Now, I know that Brazil is not as valuable as, say, the United States or the European Union or the United Kingdom, but Brazil is still the big player in South America, to be real with you, and they are a massive economy, and that is a very important revenue source. So just look at like South American influencers. It's just absolutely, the Portuguese language influencing the social media space is absolutely nuts. They pull numbers I could only dream of. And Elon is just throwing away all of that revenue and all of those users because he basically just doesn't want to clean up the little troll bots. For the first time ever, the US government has published a report saying that fluoride at twice the recommended limit is linked to lower IQ in kids. And a lot of you reading this article have immediately latched onto fluoride and linked to lower IQ, but it has a lot to do with the amount of fluoride, which we're going to get into later in the article. But this is a big deviation from normal because this is the first time our federal government has ever published a report to have anything negative about fluoride. It's been very positive for a long time. And as this article states, fluoride strengthens teeth and reduces cavity by replacing minerals lost during normal wear and tear, and the addition of low levels of fluoride to drinking water has long been considered one of the greatest public health achievements of the last century. But there has been some concern about its effects on children. So what they found is that with moderate confidence, there is a link between higher levels of fluoride exposure and lower IQ in kids. The report did not try to quantify exactly how many IQ points we might be losing here, but some of the studies suggested it was on average between 2 to 5 points lower in children who had higher exposures. And this high exposure thing is actually the very sort of important operative term that we need to define today before we just spill over into wild fluoride-related conspiracies. So the report indicated that IQ was lower in children who had fluoride levels in their drinking water above 1.5 milligrams. Now, it's important to note that the United States has a maximum limit of 0.7 milligrams. So a little bit more than double our maximum appears to be the break point where fluoride starts causing this IQ loss. There doesn't seem to be a lot of relation between the two for lower levels of exposure. A lot of the world, the WHO, they have it at 1.5, which I guess is correct. The 5 decades before 2015, we had it at 1.2, so I guess I grew up with some of that. But in the United States, only about 0.6% of the US population, or about 1.9 million out of, what are we at, 330 million something people like that now, are on water systems with naturally occurring fluoride levels of 1.5 milligrams or higher. So this is one of those things where it might actually be true that for 0.6% of the population of the United States, they're being exposed to, I guess, conspiracy levels of fluoride that actually does impact their mental health. but it seems to be a rare problem, and with the updated federal standards, this is going to get increasingly rare. And again, what's shocking about this is a government report. Government reports are typically very positive about their own projects, so it's not normal that they would report something this negative or something that would be misconstrued this negatively, because a lot of people are just seeing fluoride, low IQ, skipping all the details. So I think it's very interesting, and if this is what the science says, then I think we need less fluoride in the water. I think we definitely need fluoride in the water. It's great for your teeth. All my teeth probably would have fallen out by now if I wasn't drinking fluorinated water, but we certainly need to avoid exposure at levels that can lower IQ. Even if it's only a point or two, when you apply that across an entire population, it's a very, very bad thing. American IQ scores have been rapidly dropping over the last few decades, proving that there is such a thing as the reverse Flint effect, with the Flint effect being the name for the phenomenon that showed IQs rising over time from 1930 up until about 2006, and now we're going in the other direction. I don't know exactly what this image has to do with IQ scores. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but a Northwestern University study showed a decline in 3 key intelligence test categories, which is a tangible example of the reverse Flint effect, because leading up to the 90s, IQ scores were consistently going up, but in the recent years, the trends seem to have flipped. Reasons up for debate, but what's interesting about this is that scores in verbal reasoning, matrix reasoning, letter and number series all declined, but scores in spatial reasoning went up, which nobody really had a very clear explanation for, and all I could think is Fortnite, video games, kids that have to do complicated 3D rotations and keep track of maps and all sorts of projectiles and stuff. They probably naturally got pretty good at that if you've been gaming since the 90s, whereas the reasons for verbal reasoning, matrix reasoning, letter number series all declining are more confusing. So what they did is they studied IQ scores from 2006 to 2018 and found that 3 of the 4 cognitive domains were going down. The original Flint effect came out in 1984 when he noticed IQ scores were going up since the 1930s. Several people have proposed that this could be explained by evolution, smart people breeding more. There also could be environmental factors such as pressure for education, societal need for education, change for valuing education, which is actually one of the things they're proposing here for the reverse Flint effect as well, because it's showing that cognitive ability scores were changing over time, more specifically drops in logic and vocabulary, known as verbal reasoning, visual problem solving, and analogies, and computational and mathematical abilities are also on the decline, but with spatial reasoning up. So one of the scientists are suggesting that the reason for this is that society has an increase in focus on STEM education and may have allowed other areas like abstract reasoning, logic, letter number sequences that aren't put in a calculator fall by the wayside in order to focus on STEM, which would probably be a little bit more heavy on the spatial reasoning. So there's not a clear reason for this, and it doesn't appear that we're heading for an idiocracy kind of scenario. It just seems that IQ scores have dipped a little bit. We're not plummeting. It's not a rocket ship. It's not a long-term trend yet, but it is concerning because I think we would all prefer the average IQ to be going up. Brain scientists finally discovered the glue that makes memory stick for a lifetime. A long-running research endeavor reveals a key chemical component that helps cement memories in place and challenges previous research in a way that I'm going to try my best to summarize, but we're about to get into some biochemistry here. Absolutely love this image of a neuron, though. This is probably one of the most accurate neuron images I have ever seen. It even includes all the receptors on both ends. So very, very fun. So the persistence of long-term memory is core to our identity, and one of the things that they discovered in the 1970s was something called LTP, or long-term potentiation, which kind of just indicates the synaptic strength has increased in order to maintain a memory. So in search of molecules that enable LTP, the 2 main contenders are PKM-zeta, or protein kinase M-zeta, and then there's also another one we'll talk about a little bit later down here called KEBRA, which is kidney and brain expressed adapter protein. Now, we've known for a long time that PKM-zeta is very important for forming memories, but it's a short-lived molecule, and you need other molecules to bind to your neurons in order to make these memories last. So we started studying other things, and they did find out that PKM zeta works alongside another molecule, the Kebra, which attaches the synapses activated during learning, effectively tagging them or locking them, so to speak. And experiments have shown that blocking the interaction between these molecules abolishes long-term potentiation or ability to form memories in neurons in mice. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting here is that there was a 2013 study that showed that genetically engineered mice who don't even have the ability to make PKM zeta could form long-term memories. And they sort of thought they were blowing a hole in this, but then they found trace amounts of this compound in the brain anyway, and it was very, very complicated. But what we basically have found in the study is that researchers used two different molecules to block PKM zeta and Kebra from interacting, and they showed that both of these blockers only prevent PKM zeta from attaching to Kebra, and neither stop any of these other molecules, which I've very quickly kind of skipped over here for the sake of all of our sanity, from doing so. The big conclusion is that there was no getting away from the fact that PKM zeta is critical. You can block it, you can inhibit, you can do things with it, but this chemical compound, one way or another, however you want to cut it, is extremely important for the long-term potentiation of neurons to bind together and to form memories. So what this isn't is a simple, like, one-shot, a single memory molecule that solves everything. And we do form memories that don't depend on PKM zeta. It's hard to completely remove it from our body, even if you're genetically engineering mice, which is kind of wild. But what it does allow us to do is definitively say that these 2 or 3 molecules are extremely important for the long-term communication of neurons. And now that we truly know that, we know kind of what we're looking for, the real work can begin. My God, that was a tough one. Guys, if you're watching this on TikTok, that was a very tough one to try to summarize in just a few minutes here. I feel like I went on forever.